and all this stuff would have been enacted, but this far into the future, in which our forefathers or the ones that were our lineage or whatever are to blame, and then they are. It just makes no sense. And once they get it, will that satisfy or heal the pain from the past that they carry from their fathers that went through it, or them that actually went through it themselves? Will it heal? Will it help? Will it totally cure it, or will it still be there, unattended, and left to grow into something else? You know what I mean? Like you can't change the past, but what we can do is be different in the present and talk and listen to each other. It's the biggest problem. Have a lot of friends, and I'll just say that friends, because they're friends. Everyone's a good friend of mine. And that being said, there's a lot of people who just want to be heard and just listen, and that's it. And then just like talking about it, man. It's crazy how other friends of mine have bought into that understanding of what they're trying to push on them, trying to get them to believe a certain narrative to divide the country, because it ultimately has nothing to do with that division that's causing. It's just their way to uproot this country, and we just have to be red, white, and blue, I guess.
So,
That's my opinion. Damn, I went on way too long.
no, you're good. That's good. No, trust me. That helps out for this podcast because this is stuff that I actually want to talk about. And then we can get into a little bit of what we discussed on Michael J. Steele the other night as well, if y'all want to. But I came into that guy's podcast. I'm usually checking
that was
out
epic the other night.
Huh? Oh, Eric, you didn't
That
finish
was
listening to it.
night.
You guys missed all. You need to go back and listen to the second half of that. If you guys haven't seen it, it was Friday night. And
I listened in as a guest because I was over in Jester's show.
Oh.
Because I can be in one show, for example, like here on my phone, but in the background, like on my tablet, I could pull up Podbean there and come in as a guest, if not my secondary account.
Gotcha.
I think Pook will be right back. He had a phone call.
Awesome. So, but I went into this guy's podcast, and Pook had already called in. So I don't know what got Pook to call in. But immediately, all I hear is this guy he is just going off. But his whole point is that the black community deserves reparations for the history of black people here in the United States. And I was making comments per
What was his
statements.
case for it?
Well, there's a few different things he was saying. He was saying stuff like, first of all, the big thing, he was saying that black people had been here long before any of the Europeans came over. Now, I'm open
How is that relevant?
So, because then it puts them in the same class as like Native Americans. And then he was playing things that say, that black people are actually the most patriotic group in the United States and all this stuff. And look, that's fine. But as far as I was aware, I don't think there were any black people here. Because if you look at the Native Americans, they look a certain way, and they look like they're maybe came from Asia, East Asia, somewhere like that, right? And I actually last night after we got done going back and forth, I went on YouTube and I looked up, tried to find, okay, was this true? There was one video on YouTube that explains this. It got 1 million views, and it was the worst historical YouTube video I've ever seen. It had no basis. In fact, all of the pictures, they didn't even have paintings of black Native Americans from back whenever. All the pictures were modern pictures, somewhat modern pictures of black Native Americans. Now, there were black people that joined these tribes, like the Seminole Indians and the Cherokees. No one's denying that, but it was after they were brought here. And
you know what?
Go ahead.
No, I'm sorry. Good. Dang it, I did it again.
Here's Raccoon.
I think I have Tourette syndrome. I'm developing Tourette syndrome, so
It's
never mind. Go
contagious, I guess. I'm giving it to you. What's up, Raccoon?
Not much. How you guys doing?
Pretty good.
I'm
Yeah,
doing
Can I ask a question to everybody?
Yeah.
And I'm curious, if, has every age or every society throughout history, Egyptians, Romans, the old Persian Empire, just way back, and up until probably even now, did not every society and culture have slaves?
Yes.
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 So each society, each age, from the very beginning, as far as history spans that we can remember its beginnings, till now,
Yes.
we do recognize that every culture and age had slaves, correct?
Yes.
So
Something
why
you guys also need. Something you guys
is
need to
now?
remember now. Hey,
Why is it
Eric,
contentious now? Why is it a point of contention? I don't understand that.
Mike. Something we have to remember now.
Mm-hmm.
Today, the last 20 years, North Africa is still selling slaves,
Yep.
and most all of them are black Christian slaves.
Right. And like I knew this. I just wanted to just
I
I don't
know.
know if many people even
I
really
said that so everybody
thought
in
about it.
chat will realize it.
Yeah. And
I just like, do we realize that? Do I mean, like, from the very beginning we had them, so why are they so hell bent? I mean, I know why. I'm like, why are they so damn hell bent on this whole racism? I mean, Hitler was Hitler. I mean, he was, but I mean, I don't know, man. It's just they're good at what they're doing, but we're not
It's
stupid.
about divide and conquer, Mike.
yeah,
It's all
so
about
Yeah.
divide and conquer.
Warfare is a very tactical and very strategic. If you're
Very
good at what you're doing, especially warfare,
sneaky.
especially
Very
psychological,
sneaky
and
and
very sneaky, but they are cunning and wise.
and I want you guys to
cannot
think about
discredit
something.
them. You cannot
is-
underestimate them, people, man.
And this is what I told him. All right. He made the statement that Europeans, in fact, going back to Columbus, came over here for the purpose of coming over here and oppressing people. Right? He said that was the reason for Europeans coming over here was to oppress people.
oh man, my sinus.
That's where I proceeded to tell him that he was wrong, because they didn't even know where they were going, let alone what they were going to do when they got here. They thought they were going to the East Indies for trade purposes. It's the whole reason why they called them Indians. This is actual fact that's written in Columbus's journals. But they start denying this stuff too. How can you go somewhere with the intent of oppressing people to, but not even know where the hell you ended up? The other thing he then said was that he said black people were here long before white people. And I said, okay, then why didn't they find any when they got here? He said they did. He also said that Columbus was led here by black people. I can't remember the tribe or the group that he used. He said that they guided Columbus here. And I then went to say that can't be true, because if they knew where they were going, then they would have known where they ended up. So if the group of people that had already been here were leading Columbus here, then there was no accident, right? They knew exactly where they were at. They thought they were going to the East Indies. So how can they?
Yeah, but what's their point?
What he said,
I got here first?
Yeah, so it got into this conversation of history stuff and how black people have been on the continent and how they were all the way down in Chile and all this stuff, thousands of years before the Europeans came. The way people got over to North America was through Alaska. That's the only way they could have gotten over here during the Ice Age. There's no other link from Asia to the United States.
We will beat dead horses in this. We will beat a dead horse in this conversation if we don't bring up or into remembrance what claim is being made and what evidence is being laid out. Like, what claim are they saying? We got here first, so that means what?
And then
how does that change the past, and how does that make reparations relevant?
So
and then let him claim that shit. I mean, it makes no damn sense.
What it goes
Sounds
back
like
to
a narrative to me.
is he had this argument though, okay? And overall is coming back to why the black populace deserve reparations, but the argument was based off of all the history stuff, and he tried, he wanted to try me on the history portion, and he messed with the wrong person because I found so many contradictions because it's not, even if it's true, it's not, they didn't know what, the people that discovered this place did not know what they were getting when they got here. They didn't know it existed. They thought they were going somewhere completely different. And then I said that...
you went into the conversation.
Yep.
Was it just you or just you and him?
No, Pook was there. So Pook was already on the phone. I started messaging in the comments, and I started getting accused of being a racist by stating certain things.
Michael Key, are you a racist?
No, absolutely not.
Okay, so if you know that, and he's throwing that at you...
Oh, I didn't care, but I tried to call in. But I tried to call in, and he didn't want me to call in. He kept denying the call in. And I'm sitting there. I'm like, well, you can't get anywhere if you're not.
So that was already set up.
But
that was already set up for that whole thing to collapse. That conversation.
Well, he ended up letting me call in.
I'm neutral grounds with that guy.
He ended up letting me call in. But here's the other thing, though, that really pissed some people off. And I can let Pook talk for this part, but he made a certain assumptions about Pook that turned out to be completely untrue. And said that Pook didn't have any understanding, that he was just some white guy that, that was trying to make it seem like he knew what he was talking about. Well, come to find out, Pook knows what he's talking about. And Pook actually presented me with evidence last night after the conversations to verify that he knew what he was talking about. And I'll let when he's done, I can let him.
Do we believe what other people say about us, or do we know already who we are and what we stand for? And yet when someone makes those claims, do we ignore them, or do we battle them? And people are trying to get a rise out of people, man, and it's just...
Well, it's not that they're trying to get a rise.
I have a different way.
Well, they are trying to get a rise, but I think you have to you have to confront it. You need the discussion. Look, I'm not saying what he felt,
but on
what he
neutral
thought was wrong.
grounds.
I was only stating that his feeling, what he based that on, was wrong, right? And he was, and there's misinformation.
We all think we know things, and if I was raised in an environment where my friends said this was this, and this person or these people were like that, and I would have a belief system set up to be at conflict with the people around me. It's just, I don't know, man. I've been looking at things a lot differently, and it's just like, I'm not saying that you were wrong or he was wrong. Mm-hmm. I mean, he was definitely wanting an argument, and his way was his way, no matter what new information you revealed came out. So it was, I don't know, it wasn't out of love, obviously, but
Yeah. Well, we ended the conversation on a pretty good note, I think. Okay, that's one thing I think, and for some that have listened to when I got into it with Revolutionary Bro before, and a few other people, like, we actually end both times. I respect Revolutionary Bro. I go listen to his stuff. We talk, like, it's no love lost there. So, and I think last night, as combative as it could have gotten, it didn't necessarily get there. It was a little bit disrespectful sometimes, but it ended out pretty good. No, it didn't. No, it didn't get racist at all, or anything like that. But
racism's dead to me.
Like he made the comment, because I mentioned 1619 being when they brought the first slaves over here, and he said no, it was back in the 1500s they were here, and he said that that another guy called in and said that the U.S. Army was the U.S. military was oppressing slaves and taking Native American tribes over from the time the Mayflower came over, and I had to let him know that the U.S. military did not exist in 1628. So it was impossible for them to be doing that. Like those were the things, and
Well, just so you know, the U.S. military wasn't even created then, sir. He's like,
well, that's what I'm saying.
damn
I
it.
said it couldn't have been. That's not true because the U.S. didn't exist. It did. There was no U.S. Army here. There was nothing. There was no. You know what I mean? That's the
Be
thing.
all the races you can be in the army.
But
Sorry.
but he also, because I asked him, I said, okay, so about the reparations, like you have to go back and be able to prove you're Native American for certain things, and they don't. Everyone thinks that the Native American tribes get paid reparations. They don't. The money that they get paid come from assets that they have, like the casinos and other money making assets. They split that among the tribe. There's the other form of reparations is actually available to anyone that's in low income brackets. So there is.
Hey, Michael.
Yep.
Michael, I got something to say about that now.
Yep.
Who controls the Bureau of Indian Affairs?
I'm not sure.
Department of Interior. Who gives those people their annuities? The Department of Interior. Why?
Oh my God, I forgot
Because
about
in
them.
1944 they dropped them from the Department of War
Mm-hmm.
and sent them to the Department of Interior so they could use the rest of the money for war efforts and stuff
Mm-hmm.
and paying off the debt that they used in the war.
Mm-hmm.
Now, these people do get a check from the Department of Interior, and the reason why is if you stay on the reservation,
Mm-hmm.
we'll give you a check.
So that's the
Okay?
other point I made too with the
Now,
reservation. Because, like
yeah,
you said, if they're off of it, they don't get it though.
The reservation is the Indians' plantation.
Yeah.
The ghettos are the black plantations.
What's up, Ashton?
Okay, that's why they say nobody ever leaves the ghetto. Well, that's because it's the plantation. They don't want you to leave the ghetto.
Yeah.
Only a certain.
What is
few get
the
out
Department
there,
of the Interior used for? Anyways, what is the justification? Like, what is it?
Tourism is its
Okay.
main income
Oh my
bracket
God.
for other money. Okay, they stay on the reservation. They become an automatic tourist attraction. See how the Native Americans are living?
Mm-hmm.
Go to their TP powwows and pay $5. It goes to the tribe, and you walk and sit around for a week and see how they live and trade with them, buy their stuff. It's not what people make it out to be. I live next to two of the biggest daggone reservations.
Mm-hmm. And where I'm from is
And
like
that's
that
all
as
they
well. Because I live right off the Seminole Tribe
see,
reservation.
they were given land. They were given land in sections, and each family had so much land. Well, over a period of time, their crave for alcohol and drugs and whatever else they wanted to do or to get out of the reservation, they sold their lands.
Mm-hmm.
Some went to white people, some went to other Indians. Other Indians expanded their lands and made bigger cattle ranches or farming areas. White guys bought the land. Now they're saying, we want our land back. You took it away from us. And I go, well, if we have to leave America, then we take everything with us. And y'all can just run behind the animals again with your stone axes and your bow and arrow and shoot your game, because we're taking the cell phones, the cars, and the grocery stores and our fixed housing.
Mm-hmm.
Put you back in the Stone Age where we found you, so everything's cool.
Mm-hmm.
They don't like that shit. Okay, nobody likes to be the victim or the oppressed. They want everybody else to be an oppressor.
Mm-hmm.
I come from people who came here as indentured Irish servants. Some of them were recorded as dying in the fields because they were either malnourished or beat to death because they weren't working. They didn't treat black slaves that way because why? They bought the black slaves. The indentured servants came over and were said, here, we need you to work this guy for this amount of money. Here's for your put out of running these guys, and that was it.
Mm-hmm.
The white slaves that were over here got treated a hell of a lot worse than the black slaves did. but the black slaves were also traded to the white man by other black tribes in Africa, and were traded for stuff as menial as more alcohol. Look at or have somebody research what slave ships took over to Africa. You'll find out it was mostly rum.
Yeah.
And then when they put them in there, they stacked them like cordwood, and some of them didn't make it.
Yeah.
But it was caused because their defeaters sold them to the traders at the coastline. Their own people, their own environment took them out. And they're getting reparations. They're on welfare. They're on food stamps. They're on Medicare. Unless they've gotten out of the system and got onto their own. The people who are bitching about reparations are the ones that ain't going nowhere, don't want nothing except more, more, more.
Yep.
It sickens me to listen to those people, but I know a lot of black people. I've been around them all my life, and I've never one time heard anybody say, "Whitey, you owe me." No, it never happened. It's never happened to me. I'll say it that way. But these people are just plain stupid.
Well, and the main thing, though, and this is where I want to go in with the show tonight, and this is why I wanted people to call in too, is instead of being so focused on, there needs to be change. No one's denying that there doesn't need to be change, right? There's certain things that may probably need to be done in the inner city or in rural communities, minority communities, whatever, right? That could help them out. But it doesn't need to be financial. In fact, going through Joe Biden's budget on the last show, for those of you that were here, you would have heard me talk about how the majority of his budget, actually all of his budget that they have published, is geared towards, the black and brown communities and spending in the black and brown communities. I talked about how there was a few different problems with that. While it's not bad to want to help those, you're still the president of the United States for everybody. And it just doesn't seem like a legitimate budget unless you're including spending for all areas, not just a particular demographic. Now, some of the things, and this is the other reason why I said it was kind of illegitimate, his budget I'm talking about, is that he wants to put millions of dollars into programs that have been around in the inner cities for a long time and have never, ever worked. Never. So all he's doing, what is the railroad, the famous railroad the government built, that it's like a passenger railroad. It goes across the country, I think, but it's the big one they have. Amtrak. Amtrak has been a failing investment and one of the costliest government spending investments in history. Yet, Joe Biden wants to throw more money into it with the infrastructure deal. Same goes for a lot of these programs in the inner cities that are supposed to be, geared towards helping, the black community and all these other communities, and they don't do anything. And throughout history, they haven't, but yet he wants to throw more money at them. It's almost like, why don't we invest in things that are actually giving us a return? Money doesn't fix everything. You know what does help fix things is education. And education doesn't take money. You know what you could do? You could change some of the curriculum in schools, starting in elementary school to middle school to high school. Instead of changing the way that we teach history, because the way that we've taught history for the last however many years, I think has been fine. The United States, like I said before, as a country, teaches history far more and far better than other countries. Overall, as a population, we are much more knowledgeable about history than anyone else. But instead of changing the way that we teach it, with this critical race theory stuff, why don't we, or instead of having like art class, why don't we make them take finance? Why don't we make them take economics? Why don't we make them take shop? Why don't we force them to take more PE? Things that will benefit them. If you start teaching them math, teach math and don't change it to Common Core math that makes everything just far more complicated. Teach it in a way that it can be applied to real life. But, this also goes back to some of those teachers not knowing how it's applied. To teach finance, you have to have someone that understands finance. And imagine if everyone knew how to calculate their taxes. There's probably people in this room, statistically speaking, there's people in this room that don't know how taxes are calculated in this podcast right now. There are. And that's fine, but that's also part of the problem, right? Because there needs to be, everyone should know how. And if everyone knew how taxes worked, if everyone knew what, the difference between tax credits, tax deductions, how you calculate your tax rates, the difference between your effective tax rate and your marginal tax bracket. See, everyone looks at taxes like, oh, I made so much money, so I'm in the 25% tax bracket. No, you actually probably only paid about 16, 17%, the way that it's calculated. And if people knew that, then they would know that the rich actually pay the majority of the income taxes, the way it's structured. And it's not even close. In fact, it's a vast majority. And they would also know that most people don't even pay any income tax once it's all said and done. You would have a whole different perspective on all of the policies that the government is trying to introduce. If we taught kids government from the time they're young, not every other year or one class. I had one government class in high school. That's it. That was mandatory my senior year. And the teacher did a great job teaching it, but that's not enough. We need to be teaching kids that the United States is a constitutional republic, why we are a constitutional republic. Every kid should know what the first 10 amendments are, which, for those of you that don't know, that is your Bill of Rights. All right, that's the original Constitution. And you need to, this is stuff that you need to know. And it would also help you, when you get in trouble legally, too. All this stuff would help you when you know your rights. If you knew how the government worked, then you could look at this dumbass voting bill they want to pass, and you could see right through it. If you knew how the government worked, then you wouldn't want the Democrats to have 100% control or the Republicans to have 100% control. You would understand that we need different viewpoints and different perspectives. That's what makes our country prosper. But they don't understand that. Yes, sir.
One thing that you didn't point out to, though, that is very, very important about the whole schematic that you just laid out. 95% of those problems were brought on by the left because they didn't want people in the lower income brackets to achieve anything. They wanted to be able to promise them the world and then try to figure out how to make it all look like somebody else's fault.
Yep.
We can't give you this year like I promised, but we're going to work on that next time. Okay? This stupid bill that they're trying to push through for the infrastructure bill will not ever go through. For one thing, we're freaking broke. Where are they going to get the money except put us more and more in debt with a federal, I shouldn't even call it a federal, with this counterfeiting company that runs our bill making machines. They'll say, oh yeah, we'll let you have more money. Here's $50 billion for that, and we'll get you some more printed up. In the meantime, the dollar just dropped down another 15 cents. People don't realize that stuff, that the Democrats, after the Civil War, were told to make it happen and make America a slave country again. They wanted us just like the colonies again. And they did that in 1871 when they refinanced the goddamn Constitution and put us under corporate law. Everybody's a corporate member, but nobody gets to get any money back unless the government decides, oh, let's give them a few pennies back on the dollar and make them happy.
Mm-hmm.
We've been shamed the entire time, and it started from that point all the way through when people like the Rockefellers and the Ford Foundation decided that they wanted to finance public education and dumb down everybody. And the people in the inner cities were told, give them the shittiest teachers, let them all fail and be stupid so they can't read their own rights.
Yep.
I mean, this has been a total sham on everybody, and nobody wants to get out of their easy chair to fight it.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I don't want to rock the boat. That's what it's coming down to, and we're going to see the end of the daggone country if we don't get off our asses and start doing something. Yep. I'm trying to get out information. You're trying to get out information. But a lot of people sit there and call us liars, tell us we don't know what we're talking about. It's them that don't know because they're part of the problem.
Yeah. I mean, Eric made a good point, right? We don't even teach cursive handwriting anymore. How many kids today know how to sign their name?
That's so they can't read the Bill of Rights and the Constitution.
I remember practicing my signature all the time. Don't ask me why. It's probably because I thought I was going to grow up and be some famous athlete. Okay, but I practiced it, and my signature is, to me, I think it looks like crap. But I still did it. It's still unique to me. That's what it should be. But you can't. How do you know how to do it if you've never been taught cursive and how to sign stuff and that's not even why you learn cursive. But why are we teaching? Why are we going to let a form of our writing go obsolete and be forgotten?
It's to cripple society. It's to cripple our society. Only certain people will learn that. The rest will be dumbed down continually until they become idiots and don't know how to tie their own shoes, which a lot of them don't already and can't put a belt on.
Yeah.
Running around with their butt hanging out, their shoes untied, they fall down, and they want to sue somebody because they tripped on their sidewalk.
Yeah.
They don't want responsibility because they're told, you don't have to take responsibility for that. Somebody will pay you if you hurt yourself on their property. So everybody sues everybody. It's a killer institution is what it is.
Yeah. And you know what's scary to me? So, look, everyone is allowed to run for office. Or obviously under certain provisions and requirements, but for the most part, if you're an American citizen, you run for office. So I'm not, I want to use Michael J. Steele and pick on him for a second, but obviously some of you were in there when I started debating him the other night, and he said some things that were really scary to me. Now, this is coming from a guy that I should expect some of this stuff from, and that's fine. But he is also running for office. The problem is that some people like this actually get elected. And then that's when it becomes really scary. So the other night, as part of the wide array of topics that we had discussed and yelled about, one thing that kept bothering me, and I still want to explain this because I don't think some people really understood this, is his view of the Electoral College and how he thought elections should be. Now, you have a guy that's running in North Dakota, which has one of the lowest populations it's like either 50 out of 50 or it's close to the bottom of the list as far as population is concerned. And they have only 3 electoral votes. But those 3 electoral votes proportionally give them give them representation in the presidential elections and in Congress and all that. Michael J. Steele thinks that the election should be a direct democracy. Right then and there, when a candidate makes a comment like that, especially one from North Dakota, here we go, I got my own troll in here. the populace should know immediately that he's not wanting to do what's in their best interest, because he's actually going to go to Congress if he wins and vote on bills that will, like this voting bill that they're trying to pass, he'll vote for it and completely get rid of any kind of representation that his own state has in the presidential election. But things like this, people don't understand. And I questioned him on this, and he's such a politician. He kept dancing around it and it kept frustrating me, and I kept getting pissed off about it. And I know I need to keep my cool, but it's so hard when I told him, I was like, look, if you nationalize the election, go to a direct democracy, then that means that the people living in the cities in LA and New York and stuff will elect the president, because you're going off a majority vote. And if you do that, then you're basically allowing the people from LA and New York to dictate what's best for the farmers in North Dakota. And I said, Michael, do you think that someone from LA or New York can come to North Dakota and tell that guy how to farm? And he said, yeah, I hope they will. Our GDP is 50 out of 50. We need help with our economy, blah, blah, blah. They're doing good. I'm like, Michael, your GDP is low because your population's low. It's also low because Biden took out one of the largest industries that you had going for you. And you also are under the, and he also said, like, well, they farm in California, they do, in Northern California and stuff. I'm like, it's not the people that are living in the country in California I'm talking about, Michael. It's the people that live in the city. That's it. It's those people. That's who's going to be voting and deciding who's president. It's not fair. It's not good. But we have people that are actually running for office that do not understand this. They think they have a great understanding of the government. They have enough knowledge in the right areas, to have a broad understanding. Like, he knows, how the districts work. He knows how the elections work. He knows how the campaigns work because he's running a campaign. But he doesn't know the why behind why they have that system in place. That's one thing I think
Michael,
Go ahead.
Well, I just want to break in there for just a second. He's kind of like AOC and Al Green.
Mm-hmm.
Al Green thought if we put more troops on Okinawa, it would flip over. And AOC and your buddy there should open a bar together. They might be able to do something prosperous.
You want to know what he said about her?
The guy has no clue.
You want to know what he said about AOC?
You probably think she's a goddess.
No. So I brought up AOC because I was talking about the Build Back Better deal, and also he goes, because his argument against, I was talking about how much it's going to cost and how we're going to help anyone, and he goes, well, he will help, he's like, you're just going to add these pipes, it's going to do this infrastructure, blah, 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 blah. He goes, what? You're the actuaries of the government, they're the ones that run that bill, and our House of Representatives and Senators, they oversee it. They're going through that budget and adding it up. They know what they're doing. That you're telling me you know more than them? Like, yeah, I do. I don't think they're very good. I said, especially the House and the Senate. I said, Michael, you know who's on the Finance Committee? AOC is on the Finance Committee. She worked as a waitress. She's never worked in finance in her life, and she's on the Finance Committee. His response was, well, you don't know, maybe she took some night classes and got some experience. Oh my God. I could not believe he said that. I don't care if AOC was able to get a brain implant with 150 IQ, all right, and 20 years worth of college education on finance, she'd still be stupid. You can't fix that.
Have a master's degree in finance, and they still missed quite a few of the classes themselves, and they'll admit it to you.
especially when it comes to finance, there's a huge difference between what you learn in school compared to what's actually applied in the real world. A major difference. Okay? I can speak on this.
I understand. The whole fact of the matter is, though, we elect people who are completely unqualified for critical thinking for the masses. They figure, well, if we just make it a democracy, then what we tell the people, they'll just like it.
Yes.
I mean, that's what it's come down to. These people think they're our rulers and they're supposed to do. I mean, AOC said we got to get rid of cows because they fart. Now she's thinking we ought to put catalytic converters on their asses.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, good grief.
Well, and, you know, funny you mentioned that, Raccoon. Our friend Jeremy, who used to do the Cummings is Culture podcast, offered a great suggestion for that dingbat AOC. Maybe we ought to fit a catalytic converter on her mouth because she's so full of hot air.
You mean she's full of shit, Eric?
Yeah, no shit.
I'll say it for you.
It's implied.
I know what you meant. Just so the people on Facebook can also know.
See, there's quite a few of these people who are the key powers in our government that have never worked a day in their life.
In the private sector.
They've been strapped to politics, and they've been coddled to get to where they're at.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, good grief. Uncle Joe, he used to tell him that the goddamn guy who was a senator who died was the best thing since white sliced bread. The guy was the king of the Klan, for God's
Storm
sake.
Thurmond? Yes. He was.
Yeah, and he said, we need to stop black children from infiltrating the schools because they're turning our towns into jungles, and I don't want my kid killed in the jungle.
Mm-hmm.
But yet, he's the most popular president of all time.
Or super predators. Remember that comment with Hillary Clinton? Like, this is what this conversation went to last night when I was towards the end and when the conversation started switching and getting better, because I asked him, it's kind of 2 against 1 here, but I asked him, I said, look, I don't understand why the black population keeps voting Democrat. And I said, every day, I do the show and I try to come up with statistics, and I look at these policies that they're implementing or trying to implement, and I look at the numbers, I look at what it's going to cost, I look at who it's going to impact. The vaccine mandates is the one that those of you that have listened to me know that's a huge one that is bad for the black community. What's up? We got something to say. But I don't understand, and I laid out how every policy that Biden has implemented or tried to pass, okay, has actually been a very bad idea in regards to how it will impact the black community. And not just impact the black community and impact all communities, it disproportionately will impact the black community, which is the communities that Biden and Harris swore that they were going to benefit and protect. Yet, all they've done is propose legislation that will set them back even further. Now, we got something to say, says blacks don't like Joe. I'm finding that more and more. But yet, Joe Biden got 90% of the black vote. And I can tell you right now, as bad as Donald Trump was, he was not worse for the black community, especially numerically, than Joe Biden. So I don't understand why that is. He said because we were told
the black community
to vote Democrat.
The black community, Mike, also benefited from Trump because he put the most black people to work in history for good money.
So unemployment right now.
They shoved that and said that wasn't true.
Yep. And that's a good point. So unemployment right now is 3.9%, 3.8% as it was in January for the December numbers, right? Do you know what unemployment in the black community was? I believe it was somewhere around 8%. And think about that. We're not talking about 1 or 2% above or below average here. We're talking about substantially above what the average unemployment rate is in the country. he's not benefiting anyone. Go ahead, Eric.
And I'm gonna play this like George Carlin clip, like a few seconds of it, and I will post the link down in the chat for you to watch later in its entirety.
They spend billions of dollars every year lobbying to get what they want. Well, we know what they want. They want more for themselves and less for everybody else. But I'll tell you what they don't want. They don't want a population of citizens capable of critical thinking. They don't want well-informed, well-educated people capable of critical thinking. They're not interested in that. That doesn't help them. That's against their interest. That's right. You know something? They don't want people who are smart enough to sit around the kitchen table and figure out how badly they're getting fucked by a system that threw them overboard 30 fucking years ago. They don't want that. You know what they want? They want obedient workers. Obedient workers. People who are just smart enough to run the machines and do the paperwork and just dumb enough to passively accept all these increasingly shittier jobs with the lower pay, the longer hours, the reduced benefits, the end of overtime, and the vanishing pension that disappears the minute you go to collect it. And now they're coming for your Social Security money. They want your fucking retirement money.
I'll stop it right there. But George Carlin knew what he was talking about, back in his day.
You know what would benefit the black community? And I know some people are going to listen to this. Well, you're white. Telling the black people what would help them? That's not your place to talk. Maybe so, but I am going to give an example that actually is going to be based off of numbers. And I want people, black, white, or indifferent, to listen to what I have to say. All right, we got something to say. So we got something to say, said he's black. And you're more than welcome to call in, too. This is an open discussion if you want to discuss anything as well. But getting rid of Social Security would be the best thing that happened to the black community. And now, people are going to be like, you're crazy. Especially because disproportionately, blacks tend to be of lower income. And when they retire, they may not have as much in retirement. But here's the thing. Black people work. They still work. And they work hard. But disproportionately, Social Security crushes the middle and lower class. It's the most unfair scam in the history of the United States. Social Security needs to be it's criminal. It's the largest debt that we have in the United States. And it takes more money and puts more people back than anything. And I've talked about this before. You pay your entire life, you're going to pay at least, if you're an employee, 6.2% of your check, every single check, until the day you retire into Social Security. As long as you don't make over the maximum limit, which is only about $142,800 right now, which is the majority of people, are going to pay 6.2%. When you retire and you start collecting that Social Security check, I've never met one person that is living only on Social Security and lives a comfortable retirement. In fact, the people that get a good Social Security check usually have other money that they're pulling from. And the people that don't have other money that they're pulling from are hardly getting anything in Social Security, and they're living like crap. And that's not fair. You know why, too? Because you have earned that money. You earned that money. You worked for it. And the government wants to take it. Here's the other thing, too. Another 6.2% of your salary is being paid in by your employer. So really 12.4% of what you make is not being paid out to you. It's being paid back to the government in the form of a tax that's being paid out to people that are receiving Social Security right now. But when it's your time to receive it, you're going to get it, but you're not. If you pass away and let's say you died right before you received any Social Security money, then all of that money you worked for your entire life, you know where it goes? It goes to the government. Your family does not receive anything from that. Tell me what would... Yes?
Okay, two corrections there. One, if you pass away and you have a wife or children,
Mm-hmm.
they get a small proportion of what you paid in.
But they have to give up theirs.
And two, not if they don't have anything. If you have a disabled son or you have an underage son, he can use
In that
little
circumstance,
portion
yes.
If the government decides that you're going to get to survive until he's 18. Is your wife, if she didn't work, she will get half of your Social Security, which ain't shit.
Yeah.
But the other thing too, President Johnson, a stout Democrat and a racist
Mm-hmm.
by his own saying, gutted Social Security by letting the damn government, the Congress, put it in general fund as they needed it because he felt there was too much money in the coffer since it was a bank account set up to where the individuals got interest for the money that was setting into a set special account.
Mm-hmm.
He gutted it, and now they owe us, and I say us because I'm on Social Security,
Mm-hmm.
$3.7 trillion in IOUs written since 1966.
Yep, and it's going up.
Okay, it's going up, but the thing of it is, it goes up a little bit, and the cost of living skyrockets.
Mm-hmm.
They don't proportion anything because they're money laundering the damn Social Security to the federal exchange.
Yep.
They're sending it out to other countries that hate us for bullshit stuff that they're going to do anyway. They're going to steal the money, send some of it back to the people who give it to them, and then they all benefit from it. But the slaves don't get jack shit.
Yep.
That's what it comes down to, plain and simple.
Go ahead,
or sending money over to Pakistan for gender, studies, which I really think what waste of money right there. But then I remember watching like that ABC News program Nightline about 15, 16 years ago, and they mentioned something about how even like Social Security money goes to pay for services like the national parks, and I mean, can't the national parks get funding another way and not on the backs of like retirees and other people who paid into the system, and like the SSI and SSDI programs. But then you probably also have to consider members of Congress who want to live high on the hog, and they've got to be able to afford to eat the most expensive cuts of steak and caviar and hors d'oeuvres and and ride around in their fancy limousines.
So
have their expensive properties.
But in
believe it.
Yeah, in Raccoon, you're right. There are exceptions to the rule. Okay, now look, I'm not talking about we get rid of. I'm really generalizing the Social Security argument, right? Because there would need to be, if you did this, specific changes and stuff put in place that eases this, right? I'm all for making sure that people who need to be taken care of are taken care of. And like you said, if your wife didn't work, she receives a portion of that Social Security. That's fine. So hear me out though on where I'm going with this. If she does work and she's getting her own Social Security, she can elect to either accept yours or hers. Okay? Either way, you're giving up half of the money that you've worked for and paid to the government to get Social Security, and it's not being paid out. Okay? If you want to advance a society or a demographic in particular, but this would benefit everyone, if you privatize that, and I know this is an unpopular opinion, but hear me out still. When I say privatize it, you basically run it no different than like having a 401k. You do it how Australia does it. If you haven't looked at Australia's retirement plan, it's actually pretty slick. They make every employer participate in it, and you have to contribute so much of whatever the person makes. I think it's like 9%, and you contribute it, and it goes to the stock market. It gets into a mutual fund that's risk tolerant and can be adjusted for risk. It's no different than having an IRA or a 401k. But they're not making them pay anything on. There's no Social Security or anything like that either. When you do that, and you take it out of the government's hands, you offer far better returns, all right? But you also allow that family to retain the money at death. If think about how much money you pay away in the Social Security. Let's say it's, I'm just saying, let's say you paid $400,000, and this is not an unheard of amount. Let's say you paid $400,000 in 40 years of working towards Social Security. And you die. And again, Raccoon, I'm just making a general thing here. Let's say your wife works, right? I know. Your wife works, so she's got her benefit.
My wife doesn't work.
Yeah.
My wife doesn't work, and she doesn't have Social Security.
Yeah. But if it was privatized, if it was privatized, your wife's still going to get that money, right? She can still draw that retirement. So nothing's really changing here. But if you died, no matter what, your family gets all that money. You're now allowing them to create generational wealth. Because the difference when you privatize it and take it out of the government doesn't get to keep the money that you work for. We need to stop disincentivizing people to work. We need to stop taking from people, especially towards a fund that is the biggest scam and is the biggest debt that we have. How can they be collecting so much money every year and it's an increasing debt? Because it's not done right. As Raccoon said, they've screwed it up on how they spend the money. They've completely misdone the calculations. There's a great book that explains this called The Power of Zero. And it talks about when they first, why they first came out with it, what it was supposed to do, and it has completely gone awry. And it's not even close. It doesn't help anyone. And when you do that certain thing, the people that are disabled that do need it, okay, we can actually take care of them. We can give them more. We can make their life better. I'm not for taking away and getting rid of all that stuff because there are people that need it. But when you give it to everybody, the people that need it are the ones that get screwed. Low-key security. Yes, vets. That's another thing. Think about it. We have people that have fought for our freedom. We have people that have gotten legs blown off, arms blown off, completely dismembered. Right? We have people that have PTSD after being sent overseas for some stupid-ass reason the last 20 years, and other wars as well. Hold on, King Ziller. And they live like shit, a lot of them. And that's not right. It's not right. There are certain things we could focus money on that we could actually get money on. But we need to also understand that certain things that people, if you're my age at 29 and you're banking on Social Security when you retire, good luck. Good luck.
Yeah.
Because hell, it may not even be there. And if it is, it's not going to be worth a damn. I just don't think it's fair.
Mike?
Yes?
Go ahead.
No, you're good.
Go ahead.
Good.
Go ahead. I thought you were done.
Oh no, I'm just rambling now. Go ahead.
I wanted to throw in there, if we took out just 40% of unnecessary government spending, which is all high dollar spending in its own basis, all the way across the board, like Eric said, you spend billions over to countries to tell them not to throw daggone gays off of a building, and after class they're out there throwing gays off the buildings. They don't care. You pay people to hate us and to like us. None of them really like us. Why not just let them hate us for free?
Yeah.
We throw money out because we allowed the government to do it. The National Park Service, for one, what the hell do they do that allows them to spend $5 billion every quarter? What are they doing with the money?
I don't necessarily mind
the people who are in. Go ahead.
I was going to say, good point, but I don't necessarily mind the $5 billion for the national parks. But I do mind when we have a national park that's on fire wild. Well, hold on. So here's what I was going to get at is I do mind when you see this national park out in California that's going wild and wildfires, like just ablaze. and they got $5 million. Like, so you're not spending that money to do proper upkeep and control burning to keep that scenario from happening? Isn't that what the $5 billion would be used for? That's where it is. You're right. It is. What are they using that money for? It's obviously not to maintain some of these places.
And it's obviously not being spent correctly on the Interstate Commission because they can't keep the damn roads out of bumps. We might as well hire old Romans to come over and build roads that'll last for 2,000 years. Because we get a 10-year daggone contract on the road, and every 2 years they're out there patching holes in the damn thing or tearing out sections and putting new road bed in. I mean, everything they do is because the people who are in control of those big ass companies and corporations funnel the money. Plain and simple. They funnel it, it's laundered, it's sent back clean, and nobody ever sees it again. It's like our national debt.
And Mark
pay on that damn thing, we'll never pay it off, and they keep borrowing. You think they say, wait a minute, we can't keep doing this crap. But they do it with jealousy. I bet you can't get $20 billion out of the central bank this month. We need to do this, this, and this, and it's all bullshit spending. They put people on Social Security that's never paid into Social Security. They shouldn't do that.
Yeah.
Everybody who has the ability to work should be working, doing something.
Yeah.
Instead of just sitting around eating free and high on the hog, getting $20,000 worth of tattoos and shit with all their EBC cards that they're laundering. I mean, the system is totally corrupt.
Yeah.
Totally corrupt.
Mark Bakita.
There's no way to stop it other than to scrap it and start over again, but we can't because now they've jacked up the price to grow food this year. They say they on fertilizers, pesticides, and weed killers and diesel fuel had quadrupled, and the farmers may not be able to go out there and plant for the economy, and they're talking the food economy, without going broke.
Yep.
Well, who'll bail them out to keep us alive? Not one damn politician. Because why? They're stealing the damn money.
Yeah.
It's all about stealing. How much can I steal in my term?
Yeah.
And that's all they're worried about. Nancy Pelosi should have already been hung 15 years ago for treason. So has all them other assholes who have never done anything other than steal and promise and steal and promise.
Yeah.
That's our problem. If we get rid of the richest families in the world, maybe we can turn it around because they control every facet of our government and our trades. Every facet. I beg for somebody to prove me wrong because I did the research. I know where the money's going. And I know that these people are taking each and every person who has a job and they're working them to death to pay a tax that they do not deserve and is illegal as hell. Excess taxation without representation because them idiots do not represent us. They represent their handlers outside the country.
Yeah.
Burn every one of them in treason.
Think about certain little things. And going back to what you said. So obviously an income tax was not always around. It was came out in World War I to help the war effort. Or around there at that time. And they came out with a progressive tax rate. Now, I don't know if the original version of an income tax was progressive, but we have ended up in a progressive tax rate, which means that the rich proportionally pay more of their income percentage-wise than the poor do. Now, I want you to think about this. We're all about being a fair society. We're all about fairness, equality. But they want to penalize certain things when you are making so much money. They've never had fairness in mind. Why haven't we gone to a flat income tax? Especially when it's proven you can do the math that it will actually either be the same revenue or more revenue that's going to be, come from it. There's certain things that can make a huge difference. If you want change, like if the best way to make a change is to let people retain more of what they're working for. You don't need to print money and hand it out and redistribute wealth. You just need people to keep more of the wealth that they're earning. Stop fucking taking it. I know things got to get paid for. I know the government does certain things, and that's fine. I'm not saying eliminate an income tax, but I am saying don't just start taking so much damn money or proposing things like this. All this spending, this Build Back Better, this infrastructure, this all the other bullshit that you will ultimately end up in us having to actually pay more of the wealth that we earn to pay it back. It's all gonna, if you think it won't fall back on you or your children or your grandchildren at some point, it will. It's going to. The way to combat inflation is by taking money away from us and taking it out of circulation. You have to lower the supply to increase the demand. Like that's known. These are known facts. Hold on, guys. I got a phone call coming in.
So, something else with that, Mike. Something else with that is that taxes initially started out that the longshoreman paid the taxes because he was off the grid. He was out there on the water.
Mm-hmm.
But that wasn't producing enough, so they made everybody do a voluntary tax, which became mandatory at one point because that didn't work.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, it's all about stealing is all it is. If you took and lowered the amount of money, people will stop working and try to fend for themselves because they won't have any money to buy it if the corporations are allowed to continue doing the shit they're doing to us.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? That's the whole point. The corporations are all owned by other corporations who own other corporations who have the power to tell them what they're supposed to do for their agendas that they've set forward. All this crap that we're seeing with the Build Back Better, that'll never happen the way they're telling it because it'll always be a continuing process of trying to get there because the other side just won't play along with the game. So we have to extend it and raise your taxes more.
Agreed.
Just like they did with the dumbass train out there in California. It's supposed to be a few million. Now it's up to what? $3 billion. They still ain't completed it.
Yep.
And then people are still waiting on a train.
Yep.
I mean, they lie to us. It's plain and simple. The government freaking lies to us to keep us happy and make us think something's happening when all they're doing is stuffing their hand in one pocket and sticking it to us with the other one.
Mm-hmm.
They don't do a reach around for us. They just keep plowing away on us.
Yeah.
And they're not going to stop until they're all out of there and all gone and new blood comes in and tries to remedy the situation.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we've been lied to about so much stuff that people don't want to believe it. They don't want to research it. They don't want to read about it. They don't have time to make the adjustment.
Mm-hmm.
If you give people a wage and said, okay, we're taking away the Social Security because it's a flop, now you can handle your own stuff.
Yep.
How many people you think if they save up, say 50 grand, they're not going to go out and buy a brand new car as soon as they get it, knowing that they're going to need that money later in life? They're going to say, well, hell, I might die tomorrow, so I'll spend it now.
Yeah.
Then they'll be screaming for some help from the government.
Yep.
And it all starts all over again. Somebody has to be a middleman, but somebody has to be responsible enough to be the middleman.
And that brings
That's where
up
people like you That's where people like you could be those middlemen to tell these people, hey, you need to do this with it. Let me help you. Instead of saying, here's your money, do what you want with it, but you need to save. And they didn't hear that last part. They need to save.
Yeah.
Here's your money. Boom, they're gone. They didn't hear anything left.
And
it will fall too.
Yeah. And you brought up a good point there. You brought up a good point about the loan, like the car loans, right? Another thing that came up was the student loans the other night when I was talking about OJ Steele, and he says he's all for eliminating it. My problem with eliminating the student loans, for one, if you decide to take it out, you pay it back. Okay, the other thing is they keep thinking
choices have consequences,
and they keep thinking that it's going to advance, society, because they're not gonna have that burden hanging over them. Here's the facts of the matter: the people that it's gonna benefit are the ones that are making more money. Jester, no, we're about to head over to your show, Jester. Don't worry. He comes over and says that and leaves.
Yeah.
But the people that are going to benefit if they cancel student loans are the ones that are making more money. Why? Because they're the ones actually paying money back. The people that aren't making money, like the people that weren't able to find jobs to pay back their degree, right? They aren't making monthly payments probably because they have certain things, income driven plans. They have so many things that most of them aren't even making payments towards the loans. So some of
them are still working. Some of them are still working low-income jobs because they can't find anything with the daggone degrees they decided they wanted to chase down, too.
Exactly. And there was a risk that you took, but as far as freeing up monthly money for people, the only people it's going to free up money for are people that are making more money. Here's the other thing. This is what's funny to me. Okay, so let's go at the other argument. Well, it'll get rid of that debt. So it'll make it to where when you go try to get a loan, like a house loan or something, and this is what I told Michael J. Steele the other night, it makes it to where, okay, I want to go get a house loan, so I don't have $50,000 of debt that they're going to see now. I don't owe anyone money, right? I have this money I can then pay towards that. Great. So we're going to cancel one debt just so they can take out another debt. That sounds awesome. Because a lot of people aren't just going to go buy a house. They're going to go buy a fucking car. They're going to go buy a boat. They're not going to go buy an asset.
A second home.
One in a capitalist.
A lot of people don't understand, Mike, that nothing is free unless you give it to yourself, and then you're still having to work to get it.
Nothing is free. There's nothing in this world is free, and there's nothing that's unlimited, except for stupidity. There's a lot of unlimited stupidity in this world.
We have overabundance of that.
Yeah.
Something a lot of people don't realize is they go into college and most people get a good degree, but I know some people who have degrees that are working down here at the daggone McDonald's. Mm-hmm. They're making $15 an hour, fine, but the hamburgers went up to $7. I mean, it didn't help anybody.
Now, I will say though, some of those people working at McDonald's though they got to start at the bottom, and they may have a college degree, but they can advance pretty far and make a pretty good living.
Yeah, but they don't.
I know
they don't. I know a woman. Yeah. I know a woman who's been there for 7 years.
Yeah,
she's got a daggone bachelor's degree in finance.
Yeah.
I said, why don't you go get some? Well, I don't want to move from where I'm at here in town.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's like, okay, are you getting your debt paid? Well, I can't pay it right now. Those are the kind of people who sit there and say, well, I've got a degree. Yeah. And I want to say, yeah, but have you paid it off yet? Well, no, it ain't really your degree yet.
And that's a them
just
problem.
Just because of the fact that they short-shaded themselves into going to college to party, get a degree in something, like ancient languages that are never spoken and haven't been seen in millennium.
Yeah.
Okay, that's an interesting degree, that you got to wait for 4 people to die and move up before you can get a job, and then you're going to have to switch countries.
So when I first went to college, now I grew up. My dad's a farmer, all right, and he's worked in agriculture in Immokalee, Florida, for a large family down there, all right. And it was something I was always interested in. We have our ranch down in Alabama, so I was going to go into ag business, really just agriculture. Now it's not a bad degree, but my dad said, Michael, I can teach you agriculture. I can teach you how to grow stuff. I can teach you how to farm. But I can't teach you the business side of it. I can't teach you the economics and stuff. Why don't you go and do that? Because I was thinking about it, right? Why don't you go and do that? That will be more valuable to you. And if you want to come into this industry, I'll show you how to do it. And then you can apply all that stuff from that degree and go and I'll show you, give you the experience in that. Well, what happened was I ended up changing to economics, the best decision I probably ever made. And he worked my fucking ass off every summer, okay, being paid minimum wage in the field with all the other Mexicans that people say, that they do and that white people won't do those jobs, which they will. And he made damn sure that they're very hard workers, extremely hard workers. But what my dad did was he made sure that I never wanted to go out there and work again. That was his point. He knew that if I spent time out there and I had this other degree, if I wanted to, great. I would have been able to do that. He has connections. I would have been able to go do that. Even if I wanted to go do that now. And it's not a bad job. It's not a bad life at all. I could move up and I could make good money. But I'm not limited to that now. I have an economics degree. I can go probably do whatever I want. And for with some certain limitations, but I'm more unlimited than I am limited. It's not the going to college is not bad. If you look at the statistics, people that go to college make far more money on average than people that don't. And the statistics still hold true. But when you make that decision to do it, and when you start say, I'm going to make this investment in my life, don't waste it with underwater firefighting or something stupid like that. Because that's what some of these people do. Come on. Like, they have classes of lesbian dance theory. Why the fuck does that matter? If you wanted to learn lesbian dance theory, just go to the gay bar on Saturday night.
Yeah, there you
learn
go.
there. Don't spend $10,000 for the class when you pay $5 cover charge to go watch them dance on Saturday night.
Exactly.
They'll even love to dance with you. It doesn't fucking matter. Why waste the money on something worthless? Come on. That's the
Mike,
stupidity. Go ahead.
Hey, Mike, can I tell you a little bit about my education?
Yeah.
I'm a high school graduate. I went to nursing school. In the military, I started out as infantry and learned to be an armor and a whole bunch of other different jobs according to that. Then I got out, bummed around for a year, went back in, became a medic, got into medical supply, which allowed me to learn the financial part of running an aid station, which basically is like a small clinic. Mm-hmm. Then I worked in the surgical fields. I went and got injured, and I had to quit basically being a soldier and find a job on post. So I took an electrical class. I became an electrician. I worked in the range control office, repairing the targets that the infantry guys were shooting up, and learned how to do the electronics on that stuff. Got out of the Army and became a daggone housing contractor and built houses.
Mm-hmm. And you probably did pretty well.
You didn't go to college? I said, I didn't need to.
Yeah.
I didn't need to go to college because I had all those people to show me. And of course I did take a couple classes, and the thing about it is nobody is stupid unless they just don't have an ability to learn, which they would have died 2 minutes after they were born.
Mm-hmm.
Because you learn at that point, you got to breathe.
Yeah.
And it starts from there.
It's
the people who don't want to succeed
mm-hmm.
in life. They want to be easy. They want to play all the time. Those are the people who fail the most.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not saying they all fail. I'm saying they're the ones who fail the most.
Yes.
Even a football player goes to college and gets picked for an NFL team or an NBA team if he's playing basketball. A lot of those guys go home broke after they get out of the football field because they find out once the money's gone, all their friends leave them. I have people who call me and say, I need you to help me with this because I can't find nobody.
Mm-hmm.
It's okay. I'll go over there and they'll say, what do I owe you? So I can't charge you anything. I can't, I'm not working.
Yeah.
And say, well, here's some money for gas. And they'll hand me some money. I say, okay, this is fine. Don't worry about it. But see, that in itself is the letdown, but the high life of it, because I have the ability that they don't teach you in school anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Bartering your trades.
Yeah.
Okay. I know enough about everything that I can get by on my own for forever, as long as I live. And if I need something, I know how to go and get something that I might not need and take it to somebody who's needing it and get what I want from them or one of their friends who wants something that I have, and everybody ends up being happy. See, money is nothing more than a daggone debt that is agreed to by a debtor and a debtee.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to buy something, you're the debtor, you want it. So you ask the guy, what do you take for it?
Mm-hmm.
I'll take 2 chickens. Shit, I ain't got chickens, but I know where I can get a couple.
Yeah.
I'll be back in a half an hour.
Mm-hmm.
But other people sit there and they go, oh, I don't know what to do now. I'm completely lost
Mm-hmm.
because it's been bred out of us.
Yeah.
The will to fight has been bred out of us. And I'm not saying the will to fisticuff fight, shoot up everybody. I'm saying the will to fight,
persevere
for what you want and what is right has been bred out of us.
Yeah.
The government will take care of you. The worst things I want to hear the government say is, I'm here from the government. I'm here to help.
Yep.
I'm running that sucker off.
Yeah.
I don't need that help.
That's a good point. I don't know if you're reading any of these comments, but so just to address some of these, Loki Security said a while ago, he said, Congress should wear uniforms like NASCAR so we know who the corporate sponsors are.
Yeah.
And then
I agree.
Then he goes, why do Americans have 2 choices for president but 59 for Miss America? Now, to that point, we have more choices for president, right? Because it all starts in the primaries. You have, 10, 20 people to choose from in that point. Now, they come from 2 parties, but you still have a plethora of people to choose from. The 2 that you get running are from process of elimination. So we need to stop looking at it as, we only get 2 candidates. Well, you voted for those 2 candidates to run. You voted against 20 or 30 other people. In fact, do you remember they had to have 2 different days of debates during the Democratic primary last time? So there's a lot of different, and not all of them are close to being the same. As far as, and then you can go and look up, maybe if you want to vote independent, you probably find them somewhere. But we need to get past this. Oh, we only get 2 sides. No, you don't. You don't just get 2 people. Okay, you just need to be more proactive in the primaries. Then one guy, Friday kind of guy says, I know a guy that never had a job in his life, and then he got his first job in his 40s, that his dad got him. He says he stands with the working man. His name is Justin Trudeau. That's funny. That is funny. And then what is this? What is the same 2 parties? What are you asking? What is the same 2 parties? It's a final choice of 2. Like 50 people usually run to start. Exactly. He said, I remember when Halloween was the scariest night of the year. Now it's election day. Yeah, you can make that argument. And then most stop once it becomes very clear. Few people want them. Yes. Now, the last primary was a little bit weird. If you guys remember, there was one state, they had a big problem with, I think it was Iowa, with the caucus, wasn't it? They had some big problem with this mail-in voting and the way that whole deal went down. It was Iowa or New York. But that actually turned that whole thing in favor of Biden because Biden was not the most popular candidate in the beginning of that. He was not. It was something
Kamala
weird.
Harris would have been if she had stuck it out.
No, hell no, she wouldn't have been. I was talking to someone about that earlier. And it's funny because he made a good point. He said he thought that Biden won because he chose Kamala Harris as his running mate. I actually would agree with him that helped. Even though she was one of the least popular people that was in their Democratic primary. That shows you that it wasn't based off of policy, but based off of they wanted a first. They wanted a first, and they wanted a first as much as they wanted to vote against Trump. So, go ahead.
Just like the mud shark before Trump. He wasn't the best one. He hadn't been in politics very long, and all of a sudden, he wins with an overwhelming ride.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I mean, you think about it, guy wasn't the sharpest daggone tool in the shed, and he still won.
Yeah. There's a movie, I think it's called W, about George Bush II.
Yeah.
When you watch that, when I watched that
on CD,
I was like, this guy's a big whiner. Like, he's spoiled almost when it came to his career. That's what they made him. I don't know if that's like a true-ish story, but I'm sitting there, I'm like, this guy's a baby. When I mean baby, I'm not. Go ahead.
Grandpa Bush ran the Texas banking industry.
Oh yeah.
He was a rich boy from the beginning.
Yeah. Well, and his dad owned the oil companies.
They groomed him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm just like, it was almost like, all right, he won, but it's not the same guy you see making speeches about 9/11 and stuff. It's all, I'm like, really? This guy is what we had in office? It's scary. I think everyone should go watch it, and you're going to be like, wow, he throws temper tantrums. His dad did basically everything for him. They made sure that, let's take care of him, give him everything he wants. Like, he was a spoiled person even while he was president, but especially leading up into the presidential election. So,
well, he got out of going to Vietnam as a pilot because he didn't want to go over and get killed, so they put him in the reserve.
Yeah.
I mean, look at John McCain.
John Kerry did the same thing too.
John Kerry was just a rich kid who didn't like being over there, even though he got his college and he had to serve because he went to ROTC to get through the college. Okay, he had to go over and be with the Mud Patrol. Okay, he was a riverboat. And John McCain was given his position basically because he was a POW and highly decorated my ass because he released a damn dry fire on an aircraft carrier. He dry fired his jet, causing a plane behind him to drop a bomb and damn near destroyed the aircraft carrier. But his daddy was an admiral, so he was given. Yeah. Then he got caught in Vietnam, and everybody who was over there, Hanoi Hilton, said the son of a bitch was trading us out for food and extra favors.
Wow.
Yeah. There's a lot of stuff that you can research on these, and you go back even further with some of these other idiots that we've got still in there, and think about it for a minute. We elected a bunch of, and I say we, I mean, I didn't really elect them because none of them were in my state at the time. We elected hippies to run the daggone countries, and now we've got them trying to put us all into a communistic regime because that's what hippies were all about.
Yeah.
Live in a commune, everybody be equal,
Yeah.
except them.
Which is
Nobody
just
realizes that once you're in a communist regime, and I know this for a fact, once you're in a communist regime, once you've been used to your complete ability and you have no more use, they get rid of you.
Yep. Sure.
But they don't want to. They think they're going to live forever. Nobody lives forever on this planet.
So we're gonna wrap it up. I want to. Low-key says I don't approve of political jokes. I've seen too many get elected. That's funny. I don't know where you're coming up with these, but these are good. So we're gonna. Jester's on at the It's Doomsday podcast. We're gonna go. I'm gonna head over there. We're gonna cut this short. So anyone listening, I suggest you check that out. That's a very good show as well. Very interesting. Kind of just talks about. He says a liberal is just a conservative that hasn't been mugged yet. Those are good. So yeah, let's go check out It's Doomsday podcast, guys. Again, good show, relaxed show. I'll be over there. I'll probably call in. So go check that out. We're gonna cut this off, and I don't know if I'll be back on tomorrow, but if not tomorrow, then Tuesday. Thank you.
Thanks for having me on.
Yes, sir.